Hopefully I'm doing this right, otherwise we'll have to re-figure this out later. Let me type, please. Alright. Good stuff. What's good about Dirge of Cerberus? What do you guys like about this game? I'm probably going to try to give you guys more control of this one, because I question my ability to rate this game properly. So, I will say, playing with keyboard and mouse, I'm glad I did it. I would not call that a positive part of my experience for this game. I will say that. I don't know, maybe there's a world where you can make it work, right? Where you get the right mouse, set the right sensitivity. But I would say you definitely just want to stick with controller. Coolest game title, yeah. I definitely am like cool with like good aesthetic, kind of like, I don't know, what would we call it? It's not like a gothic horror, right? It is like a darker version of what Final Fantasy VII is. I don't know what you describe that as, but it is kind of edgy to some degree, but I think it's like fun. It doesn't take itself too seriously, I feel like. Or at least I don't. It takes itself seriously, but in like the very Final Fantasy way kind of thing, right? It's not like overly complex. Not like Parasite Eve the Third Birthday. We'll stick with great aesthetic initially here. I don't know if I spelled that right. Right? Aesthetic? Aesthetic? Don't worry about spelling. I'll fix the spelling later. I don't have spell correct stuff, and I'm bad at typing, if you didn't know. So, most guns of any Final Fantasy. Is that so? Final Fantasy 11 and 14 have a lot of guns. So that might not be a statement we can make. I think I do agree that it at least tried to do something with the melee combat versus the Cyberpunk meets Gothic horror. Yeah, it is kind of like that. I think that makes a lot of sense in terms of like the thing. Neat. I lost my window. Come back to me. Return to me. Thank you. I do appreciate the attempt to like mix. Do I want to say it does, or do I want to say it at least tries? I think it was harder to really say that with the mouse and keyboard option, because it was really hard to switch between shooting and melee combat in mouse and keyboard. But when I was playing with just, you know, admittedly I was playing the older version of Dirge of Cerberus, I did find myself using melee more. So I think that's fine. So what do we want to say with that? We'll keep it plain for now. Just say neat mix of melee and gunplay. There are like other elements, like there's the magic system. I didn't utilize the magic system a ton. It gets bonus for. Let's focus it down specifically on this version of the game, I think. The one we played through entirely. Admittedly, I did play through. I mean, the US version, literally the same thing, right? There's nothing about this version of the game that I would say, other than just like the cool, like, ability to transform into the beast separately. Like, I don't know if we really want to focus on that per se. Sorry, I said I was like, I'll give you guys control, then I immediately start gatekeeping. I'm like, do we want to do this? We want to take that approach? The most Gackt, I'm okay unless we need this slot for later. We'll put Gackt there. I do have a. Do you guys agree on the story part? Oskar and MisterT. Oskar, MisterT, and Alex are the ones who are reviewing today. Although if anybody else is here, feel free to queue in. But I think you were the only 3 right now. Restream, I think, fixed its like number count. There was a while where it said I had 0 viewers no matter how many people were in the chat. So, but do you guys like the story, Oskar and MisterT? If you were paying attention to it. I have a little bit of problems with the story, but I don't know if I want to go too deep into that. Generally, good story. Okay. I do think it's like a... Let me say a little bit about what I have to say about the story. I am a little bit of a believer in you should be able to jump into any game and generally get it, right? There should be at least some kind of onboarding process. I feel like Dirge of Cerberus does not really have a great onboarding process. Like, if you don't know what happened in Final Fantasy VII, then you don't really know what's going on in this game for the most part, I feel like. I could be wrong about that, but that is generally my feeling on this, because like there's like times where I play like Little Witch Academia or something, and it just like does a really bad job of introducing you to the world and characters in an effective way. And so I think I get a bit more picky about that, especially playing anime games in specific. I spend a lot of time thinking about how much do I understand about this world? Do I really get what's going on? And like, I think the Sword Art Online games do a really good job of building out this world early on, although they are almost like, there's a lot of, I'm not gonna talk about Sword Art Online right now, but I think those games generally do a pretty good job, where I feel like Dirge of Cerberus didn't really do a lot of early world building, but I think what is in there is very good. And yeah, as MisterT says, there's a lot of fan service in there too. I think some of it's shallow, like Cloud, Tifa, and Barrett, they're there, but like in what capacity? They show up in a few CG cutscenes or something, right? I think that's a little shallow, but I think the I don't know, there's something and maybe this gets into like aesthetic. I think there's something about seeing the world of Final Fantasy VII like a full 3D space at this time specifically, right? Obviously, I don't know when Crisis Core came out. I think it came out before this, though. So, yeah, maybe that's not. Maybe I shouldn't think about that. But I do think we can probably say that it's like, let's say it's like a good, like good supplemental, or good. I hate using words just like good. We'll just say good. Good. How does it sound? Good supplemental story. I think I can get behind that phrasing specifically. How do you guys feel about that? Specifically. Let me look at some of these while I wait for you guys to say anything about that. But great aesthetic. Well, this is the good, right? So, yeah. Supplemental material. When you say material, is that because you don't feel like it's a good supplemental story? Just like supplemental. It is ambitious, I will say that. Like, maybe I'm having a bad memory here, but I feel like RPG shooters were not as big of a thing at this time, right? There's a pretty extensive customization system in this game. I did not interact with it a ton, but like, it's worth mentioning. I don't know how much this came off on the stream. The guns feel very differently depending on how you configure them. So I'm gonna say actually, you know, it's a limited customization system, but I think it is. I think it. The part I'm struggling with here is the fact that it is kind of more or less just you're choosing between 3 different types of guns and then adjusting the firing rate and stuff like that. So like maybe it's not the most diverse set of weapons. It's pretty straightforward in terms of weapons. But I do like that it's there. And I do think it's good. I just don't, maybe the core weapons are a little plain. So maybe we'll stick with good customization for now. neat mix. Maybe the real answer is just neat mix of I don't like how I'm wording any of this. Neat mix of RPG elements and FPS. I don't like how that's worded. We'll think about that in a second. Do you think that covers what you're trying to get to, Oscar? Where it's like it is faithful to Final Fantasy in some ways. It is very much a Final Fantasy shooter, right? Faithful, successfully mixes RPG, FPS elements. This might be bleeding off the bottom of the screen, so sorry if it is right now. They're nice. Visually, a very good looking game. Thank you. Technically, it can be a first-person shooter if you go into first-person mode, but we didn't really do a ton of that. I think the melee and gunplay stuff separately does stand out. Good supplemental story. How's that looking on the sheet here? Is there anything else we're missing? I think the presentation is just really good overall, actually. Maybe the real answer is like not so much aesthetics, but like great presentation and atmosphere. That's probably the real thing. God dang it. Oh yeah, if I and it there, and it doesn't really fit. We'll see if it fits on the second page. I have an extra space here. No. We're gonna bleed off for now, but good. Great presentation, atmosphere. Successfully mixes RPG and third-person shooter elements. Let's just narrow that down to that. I think about this melee and gunplay thing because I do think the game's still mostly gunplay. I think that's something about the game that stands out to me, though. That you can transition between the two fairly effortless. Presentation. There we go. Thank you. Good. Supplemental FF7 story. Alright. Neat mix of melee and gunplay. This good. It's a good amount of stuff. I feel like this is maybe the good. I think I'm good with this. Are you guys good with this? Game needs more Reeve. More Reed in the plot. Looks good to you, Mr. T? Okay, we got one sign off. Anyone else? Give it a little bit more time. I'm glad Reeve is in this game. Like that is something. He is 100% the type of character that I would like hold up on a pedestal in a game like Final Fantasy VII. So. Yeah. Okay. We got 2 out of 3. Well, 3 out of 4, Oscar. So. Oscar, you've been voted off the island of whether this is good or not. Alright, let's hide that. Get out of here. Alright, next is the bad. Yeah. Story requires knowledge not a standalone story. I think I can definitely agree with that. You definitely need to know what happened in Final Fantasy VII to really understand what's happening, I feel like. It's hard. I'm gonna be a little cautious about controls. Sporadic pacing. I think pacing is a good thing. Pacing's a bit uneven. You know, I was just thinking about that, MisterT. There are parts of the game that I think are bland and parts that I think are good. I think it's probably more bland than it is good. The areas I'm thinking of are, I like the tower area that we were just in, that I was showing you on the old game, where you kind of go up the I definitely had that thought on my MisterT, not enough Gackt. Where like you go up the floors. I like that level. I like the level that is in the office building. Well, let me say this. My memory of that level was probably better than it was, so let's actually cut that one out. I like the idea of fighting in cubicles, but I think the actual implementation was... What's neat about that area, I think, is that they flood people in, they all kind of hunker down in their individual spots kind of thing. But in execution, you just kind of like, you know, walk slowly up to them and then shoot them, basically. So I think that area, typically, I would have, if I was talking about this game without having played it recently, I would have been like, yes, cubicles. But cubicles, I think I'm a little more on, because I think there's something more interesting that could happen there, probably. But I appreciate what they're trying to do with that. The real difference to me is that final, like, level before the one we just played today, the one that was like in that one area with all the weird stuff happening. I like that level a lot, and I think there's not a ton of that in the main game. I think there probably should have been more of that kind of stuff in the main game. But it was I think that stuff comes up in the extra missions more. So I think one thing I do want to kind of revisit is just like not a ton of variety in the guns. Not a lot of gun variety. You kind of get the stock stuff you need, and even though you can customize them, I don't think they really stand out all that much. The fact that the Cerberus uses 3 bullets, I think, is the most interesting thing. Less strategy. I know it's hard to in like chat, Alex, but could you get me a bit more information about what you mean by less strategy? Missing content in different releases. At no point did I ever feel like I needed to know more about Deep Ground, and that is what is missing from the last couple releases, is Deep Ground. And I think the fact that it's not there, especially something that was specifically for online mode, I think I would have a hard time knocking against the game with that, especially since these days the servers would be offline anyways. So, you know, I'm glad they put it on the disc. That's like the nice thing they did for that version. It's there, but yeah, the online stuff's just gone. So, but the extra versions are in all the future releases, and we're talking about every release after the first release had those extra modes in there. So I think largely those games are as complete as they can be, given the servers are online. I mean, Dirge of Cerberus wasn't online for very long. It was only like 9 to 12 months, I think, or lack of enemy variety. I can agree with that. You know, it's interesting. When I think of like a shooter, like a military shooter, you're just kind of shooting soldiers all the time, right? But a game like this, you actually shoot quite a few different things. But it does feel like something is to be desired about the enemy lineup. I'm trying to think of what. There is a good variety of enemies. Maybe a variety of enemies not the problem here. As you get the little robots that shock your feet, You get the deep ground soldiers, like 2 or 3 different types of deep ground soldiers. There's the big buff dudes as well. There's also like the snipers. There's the little bugs everywhere. There's the tank things, robot tank things. There's boss fights that are different from like just the normal boss fights. Like that is a good chunk of stuff. But I do think I agree there's something missing there, and I don't know what it is. The AI? Maybe it's the AI. All the AI is very shallow. There's basically 2 types of enemies, right? There's the chase, and then there's the standstill guys. Soldiers don't really move. They kind of like hone in on a position and they just kind of stick there. Yeah, maybe that's what it is. You only really have 2 types of enemies in terms of their functions, or rather how you approach them. I don't even know if that's so much. I guess that is an AI thing, right? 2 different routines essentially. Charges you or stands and shoots, one or the other. Clearly a Shadow Hedgehog knockoff, yes. Needs more endings. Admittedly, we got all the I fast tracked you guys to the special ending, so I was like, maybe we can boil it down to like lack of gameplay variety, because that kind of includes a lot of things. But then I think about when we go back to the melee attacks and the gunplay, that is nice. But yeah, can we simplify this down to lack of gameplay variety? I think that would encompass bosses as well, right? I think it's a good catch-all for what we're complaining about here. Oskar, I have a copy of Shadow the Hedgehog. We should probably play Shadow the Hedgehog at some point. We should probably play a Sonic game on stream, because I cannot give myself the time to play a Sonic game for some reason. So, I do absolutely want to play a Sonic game, though. Also, I see a couple other people joined in, so if you want to contribute to the Final Fantasy VII Dirge of Cerberus review, feel free to. Although you have missed the good section, so we're just talking about the bad now. Let's see here. Yeah. Okay. Let me move on from that. I think that's good. So we got the bad. Not a standalone story. Pacing is a bit uneven. Not a lot of gameplay variety. Not enough Gackt. I'm sure like every review of this game just like mentions Gackt in a dumb way, right? Like we're not really doing anything special there with Gackt, but I don't know. It's too tempting to leave behind. I think that's solid. I think that's a solid lineup of bad. Like I don't think there's too much more I can think of. The keyboard and mouse controls are kind of janky. Do we want to talk about that? Do we want to mention that? I want to say this. As we're doing this review, we're going to put keyboard and mouse are kind of janky here. I do not want that to affect our score, if that's cool with you guys. Because I think at the end of the day, you can always just say, well, just play with controller, right? And the controller, I think the controller is a good way to play that game. So we'll kind of neutral say mouse and keyboard. Optional, mouse and keyboard, hard to I don't know if we'll do Sonic Adventure 2. I've got Sonic and the Black Knight. I got Sonic Unleashed, Shadow the Hedgehog. Those are probably the ones I'd probably be most interested, because I already beat Sonic Adventure 2 in my life. I think that would be like a good compromise if we want to play Sonic games. Like, I will play a Sonic game, but not the ones I've already played through. Sonic Adventure 2 is a good video game. I don't have the same reverence for it, I think, as other people do. I personally prefer Sonic Adventure 1, but I think it's because it's kind of janky, right? Like there's some weird stuff going on with Sonic Adventure 1 specifically, but yeah. Is this good? Is this alright? I'll go fix these things later anyways, but get all the capitalization and stuff right, but I think this is alright. I think this is the good. The Dirge of Cerberus, the bad. The good, bad. Sonic Ball. I probably have Sonic Spinball somewhere. Looks good. Sonic Rush on Wii U? Is Sonic Rush on Wii U? Or are you talking about like emulating it on a DS? Because I could just capture DS games at this point, so. Alright. Alright. Sonic Rush is great. I should check it out eventually. Yeah. Let's move some stuff real quick. Okay. Alright. I need to reset the arrow. I keep forgetting to do that. So we got our arrow here. Alright, cool. We'll have to make our arrow tinier this time. I need to like properly space all this stuff out. Where are you guys? There you are. There am I. I'm upside down, as always. Dante from Devil May Cry. I mean, Dante probably could be shoved in that game and like dumb gameplay-wise, it could probably work, but. Alright, so let's see what you guys are thinking in terms of score here. So, 4 out of 5 from Alex. That'd be right here. Right under the G for Gackt. This dude right here is G. That's what Alex is saying. Alex, I think that's probably a little high for me. Anyone else want to throw out some scores here? How much is Sonic Rush on... How much does it cost to buy a copy of Sonic Rush? Sonic Rush is cheap enough. I'll just buy a copy of Sonic Rush. Or maybe it's a Sonic Rush Adventure? Sonic Rush is like $20 for a complete copy. Maybe they're bootleg, you can say. 3.5 or 4, 3.333. I think I am also about right here. I like this game, it makes me happy, but I don't think I have a thumbs up. I know you guys can't see my mouse cursor here, but I'm pointing at the screen. Like, I don't think I think it is a good game. It's a little maybe dated in terms of its controls, even for its time. I think it was maybe a little dated for its controls. But I think it's a good video game. And I think if you're... Ask you guys a question. If you're a fan of Final Fantasy VII, would you recommend this game to somebody based off what you've seen? I think that's the trouble I have right here. Is like, I do enjoy this game. This is how I feel about Final Fantasy VII Dirge of Cerberus, and I'm 100% okay with this being the score here. But do you feel like you could tell somebody else you can play Dirge of Cerberus? Because I feel like, for me, I would have a hard time justifying it. If that makes sense. But maybe that's because of the fact like Final Fantasy VII is such a different thing, and also like such a high bar when it comes to game quality, at least at the time, right? Tell someone who is in the thing too. Yeah. not that that's gonna affect our score today. I'm just very curious. So, because I feel like I still have trouble saying like you should play Dirge of Cerberus, Final Fantasy VII. So, all right, are we feeling good about what we got on screen here? I know score-wise we should be good. I think comment-wise we should be good. Yeah, I think setting people's expectations properly for sure. For sure, making sure they understand. I have a lot of internal conflict about how I talk about games a lot of times, and making sure that people understand where I'm coming from. But it's one of those things that it can be a challenge. So, all right. I'm gonna go away. Now you guys are gonna go away. And now it's time. Let me make sure I have my stuff in all the right places so I can do this easily. I feel like we should have like a fanfare when this happens rather than just the music stopping, but we're gonna do it. We're gonna do it. If I see them in Dirge of Cerberus, please understand. Alright. Wacha! We did it. Reviewed. Complete. 3.5. Was Kaito Joker a 3.5 as well? I can't remember. I know Quest 64, we were like, 2.5 would have been the better option for that, but I've been trying to use did you guys get a double stamp? I'm sorry. I'm not sure. Like, I think sometimes Streamlabs does not like how much stuff I have going on in here. So at least it doesn't look like you're like constantly getting stamp noises or something. So that's why I think the Final Fantasy stuff was like lagging really bad earlier. So okay, well, it's me again, your friend Ben. It's the end of the stream.